Great. Okay, well, thank you for having invited myself and Clara. Lovely to be here. We're going to talk to you about the process that we've been going through so far and where we are in creating a service design apprenticeship. So first of all, why us and why now? And it really married up two things, which is the apprenticeship levy that every large organisation has to pay to and often has much money to spend, with me thinking like, oh, it'd be great if more people could get trained up in service design, because it's a new skill. It could be something that we could use to grow the kind of future generations of service designers, and also to equip managers who are in the middle of doing a service design themselves with the skills they need to be able to do it themselves. And so I put a tweet out and didn't think much of it, and then was really overwhelmed by the amount of people who came back saying, yes, it's incredible. What about this person? What about that person? It kind of, for a moment, had a bit of a Twitter storm around it. And one of the people that I got linked up with is Clara, who works at GDS. We've been the main people kind of pushing this forward with support of a whole range of organisations, and we'll tell you who's on there so far. So to tell you a bit about apprenticeships, quite a lot of people think like, aren't they just for 16-year-olds, mechanics or admin assistants? And they're not. Now we have even MBA apprenticeships that you can do. There's whole degrees that you can get paid for as an apprentice, and more and more different types of courses are coming online in response to the different design needs or the different needs of employers. So what how long they can take, it's anything over 12 months if you've got a programme of learning that needs to take place, and it's a substantial one, so a year plus, that can be delivered via an apprenticeship. And with the commitment, it's that you do 1 day a week of training at the very least, and then that you have to commit that the work that you do in the workplace really feeds into the thing that you're training up to be. So if you were doing a surveying degree, that you would be in a role which would enable you to put your learning into practice in the workplace. And they're designed with a consortium of employers. So all you need is a number of employers who say, yes, this is a skill that we need. And together as a group of employers, you can design the curriculum. You say what is needed for, in this case, for a service designer to be fully fledged, operational, able to do the role that they are here to do. And so you design it around curriculum around that. So that's a bit about apprenticeships. Clara, could you speak about who's involved and what we've done so far?
Yeah, of course. So we've had 3 workshops, or 4, depending on whether you count the conferences as well. And sorry, Amy. So the first workshop that we had was mostly with people from the public sector. So we had a lot of representatives from central and local government and some third sector, and only maybe 1 or 2 people representing the private sector. We went through some sort of really basic things like, what is a service designer, what do they do, and comparing central and local government. And we realized after that one that we needed to get more involvement from the private sector. So Amy and I, but mostly Amy, reached out much further into the private sector to try and broaden our links. And our second workshop was with mostly private sector and academia, which was really interesting. So if you just go back a couple of slides, Amy, to that list of all of the people, you can see that we've got a real mix of central, local government, third sector, public sector, private sector, and a whole lot of sort of design education institutions as well. So we've got a lot of buy-in. And if we skip back over, should I keep going, Amy?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So we've done a lot of groundwork in sort of trying to define service design. So you probably, if anyone who's here has done some thinking about what service design is, you'll probably know that it's quite hard to pin down one single definition. So it's taken us a lot of iterations, a lot of research, a lot of engaging with different people from across the industry to define it. And we've put that into an occupational profile, which is a very specific template that the Institute for Apprenticeships needs to be able to describe the apprenticeship for the people who will be offering it and delivering it and taking it. So we tested this definition with users, we've iterated it, and this is what it looks like. Or what it looked like a few months ago anyway. So we've got an occupational profile describing it, sort of some high level things about where you'll find it and what it might be called and what the purpose of it is. And the thing that Amy and I have been working on recently is mapping out the duties of a service designer. So I think we're up to 13 core duties of what a service designer does. And this is a really important part of defining these duties is a really important part of the apprenticeship approval process. And we need to get these duties right, and we need to map them to make sure they don't overlap too much with other pre-existing apprenticeships, which is one of the difficulties we've had recently. So you can see here, these are the headings from the 13 duties that we've got. If you go into the link that Amy has put, I don't know if we've got the link on the chat as well.
What I'll do is, we'll stop sharing in a moment, and then I'll send a link around, and we can have a discussion about the actual what we're saying in it.
Yeah, so you can, if in that link there's more detail on just a small paragraph on each of those duties and what we're talking about. Amy, do we want to talk more about the difficulty we've had with this, or do we just do the activity first?
Yeah. No, let's have a bit of catharsis. What's been hard? I think apprenticeships are because they're employer led. It basically takes an employer or a number of employers to shoulder the hard work of pulling together and jumping through the hoops that you need to jump through to create an apprenticeship. So that's been quite hard, both kind of finding the time and the goodwill of other people, and also working with the institute and giving them what they require to be able to put the curriculum through their kind of engine or whatever it is to come out with a course. So those have been the three main things, but it feels like we're up to a good point now where we soon will have the duties agreed and the other work that we've done approved, and then we'll go on to the next bit, which is listing the knowledge, skills and ability of a service designer in order to be able to start working up what a curriculum would look like. So the sort of training that people need to have, what you'd expect people to be proficient with by the end of the course. And then, so we're kind of, I would say, a third of the way through. And hopefully the other 2/3 will take less time than this third has taken. So shall we, I'll stop my screen share, and hopefully that will mean that we can see each other. I don't know if we're able to see each other.
Can I add a couple of extra reflections, Amy, on the apprenticeship? Yeah. So I think yes. One thing to say is that obviously Amy and I are both kind of doing this as well as our day jobs. So that's one of the reasons it's been quite hard to find the time, and everyone that's involved in this is doing it sort of on the side or as an extracurricular thing. So that's been quite tricky. But another thing is that I do a lot of work in sort of justice and equity and diversity and inclusion in GDS across the central government, and the need for apprenticeships and for ways to build up people's capability and their skills within employment is such an important part of improving the diversity of the people who work in government and making sure that it is a more equitable place to be working. So we have lots of applications. For example, we've got a junior service designer role that we're trying to fill at the moment, and we have lots of applications for people who have done masters in service design and doing things like that, or been to various boot camps and design hacks and all kinds of things. And those things aren't always open to everyone. Not everyone is able to take the time out and get the money together to do those things. So something like this is really important for kind of making sure that we stay on track.
I think also a challenge is that we're thinking with our course not just like what the profession is today, but thinking in the future. So at the moment, there's a small part of service design and designers who are thinking, what's the impact of our work on the planet? How do we take not just a user-centered approach, but a planet-centered approach, so that the services we design are good for people and the planet, and therefore, because it's good for the planet, it's good for people. And so trying to think forward and say, what are the skills that are just starting to emerge, but will be so much more important and have more of an emphasis behind them in the future. That also is both really exciting and a challenge. So I think it's a passion project for us both, in kind of giving more people access to this, to this sort of training, and also to seeing how service designers can bring more of a planetary view to their work. I've put in the chat the link to the occupational profile. Can people see it? Is that so? Sam and Helen, are you able? Yeah, is it Mikhail as well?
Are we able to bring it up on the screen so people watching it back can have a little look just for a second? Okay. Is that all right?
Let me do that. Yeah, no worries. Let's have a look. Okay, so it's a pity then you can't see people's faces when we're having a conversation, but what I think we're really keen to do is talk through the main duties. We've got a conversation in a few weeks' time with our program manager from the Institute of Apprenticeships. We'll be looking to see both like her, yes, to try and put these into institute words and institute phrases. But I'd love to hear thoughts about things that you agree with, disagree with, things that are absolutely necessary in the duties of a service designer. So what are people's thoughts?
When are you hoping to start this? What's the timescales for it?
It's whenever it's ready. So there's quite a lot of hurdles to jump through. This is like I said, it's the first third, I imagine, of getting this approved. Then we've got the knowledge, skills and abilities that we'll have to develop and get approved. And then we'll have to create the endpoint assessment, which will like determine what activities somebody will need to do to prove that they are able to, like, they're a proficient service designer. And it's taken us a year to get to this point. So I'm hopeful that it won't take 2 years to get through the other two. Yeah.
Judging by the unexpected hurdles we've had along the journey so far, I wouldn't want to commit to any kind of timeline.
Yeah. So shall I talk through the areas, and then we'd love to hear reflections. So people-centred, we put this front and foremost, and then equity and sustainability as the second one. So people-centred being about really advocating for people at all times. So making sure that services for people, equitable services for people, is always a priority. We see so often that that policy or technology can limit people's thinking, and so the importance of people-centred design is kind of front and foremost. Then the equity and sustainability speaks to both. Yeah,
would like it a lot.
Oh, you're breaking up a bit, Clara.
Right now.
Sorry, you're breaking up. Can't hear you very much. Maybe you could put something in the chat.
Not. So that's about as much.
Claire, you're not. You're breaking up quite a lot. So we've got so equity and sustainability as a second consideration. And then we go into kind of some of the really hard skills of being able to conduct research, both qualitative and quantitative, using data to justify decisions. And then The next one, communicating and simplifying complex ideas. Then we've got mapping and visualization, about how we can do that in a variety of ways to really understand the user experience. One of the other, facilitation and co-design, bringing people together, designing together is so important. We've got managing and leading change, so using models to change to identify how to get people on board. I think that's something that service designers, through working with people, know how to get people alongside, and we see that as a really core skill to be taught to. Not just something that people learn kind of on the job. Then we've got designing solutions to problems, both end-to-end, back to front, cross-channel, and having the real skills to generate creative ideation. Then we have prototyping and piloting, working with stakeholders and influencing strategy, so really knowing how to build a compelling case for investment in certain areas, how to advocate and bring people alongside and on board. Scoping, what is the actual problem? Defining what the scope of a service might be, and that kind of zooming out to see the big detail, but also zooming into what implications that might have on people. We've also got critical thinking, educating others, managing your own time, project management, and then professional development. So a question for people, for Helen and any other people, is what out of those do you think is the most important? Is there any that you disagree with? Yeah.
No, I mean, I think they're all very relevant, and probably you couldn't really put one above the other because they're all interlinked. But no, that looks like a really good comprehensive list. I did put something in the chat about change management and getting customer buy-in, but I guess that comes under 8, managing and leading change. Because you're absolutely right, it's all about building those relationships, and if you've got good relationships with your customers, then you're more likely to get them on side.
But would you say there's something about, I suppose there's models of change, how to get people on board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Customer control dartboards, there are various models that can be used. Mm-hmm. So people don't like change and some people find it really difficult. So
yeah,
it's giving them the tools to manage that.
Has that been the most challenging part, do you think, of your work, Helen, or are you in the service design team?
Yes, yeah. I mean, also I think it's about not making people think that they're having something done to them. It's about making them feel part of it and that they've got ownership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's we didn't say where we come from, what our background is at the start of this, but I come from an HR background, and so having seen restructures where really change, there is a process for people to get to comment on a suggested structure and suggested change, but really it's outside of there's limited scope sometimes, and that's where I see a real strength in service design of people in the service delivery being involved in the research and being involved in ideation to really own that change. So I see that as part of the change management as much as theories of change is part of change management.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I've seen Clara said one problem we've had with articulating what the actual duty looks like. So, for example, when we say advocating for users, what will this actually look like? Service design practice is so variable from one context to the next, it's hard to define and therefore hard to articulate it so that others can understand. So it's, I suppose if we look at the duties as you would in a job description, I know in my job you wouldn't have a duty being people-centered, but how do you either say, no, this is so important it needs to be a duty, or how do you weave that in to everything else? Sam said, I agree with Helen about it all being a priority, and I love what you said about it being service design in the future, not what it is now. Yeah, I mean, when you think into the future, are there any other skills that you think service designers might need that we should be thinking ahead and putting into this?
I suppose from my point of view is I'm user adoption. So we've got the user adoption and we've got the service design team working together. So whether other teams might work in that way across other councils or other organisations, I don't know, you might know more than me, but it's having the user adoption part of it, and the learning and the training and all of that as well. And we do a lot of show and tells, don't we? Or what do we call them now? Show and share. That kind of thing.
We got criticised that it was a bit too like first school language. So
it's all those presentation skills in there as well, and really trying out those applications as well, isn't it, Helen? You do like a lot of research and a lot of playing with things as well, isn't it? There's so many different skills that you need as a service designer, isn't it? So it really is an area that's can just grow and grow and grow, isn't it, depending on your own skills.
Yes, I think you're right about the user adoption. I mean, I come from a semi-training background as well, and I must admit I find all those skills like patience and listening to the customer, they're all really valuable skills that you can that translate across all those areas.
Yeah, and so this so those things that you're saying in terms of patience and training, or like it may be, especially with the like having empathy, being able to be patient, creativity, that will more likely fall into the knowledge, skills and abilities. So it might be that there's something about patience, and that's kind of, I mean, it's hard. How do you teach patience apart from having a toddler or having a dog that needs lots of patience? It's kind of a life learning thing, but I suppose the empathy can be helpful in the patience. Yeah.
And I don't know that you've mentioned it, but also having knowledge of bias as well is really valuable, because we all have our own biases, but it's about being aware of them and having an open mind as well.
Yeah, that's especially around that's really, really helpful, being able to understand your own bias. I wonder where that might fit in. If we look at the duties, where that might, just going to see if I can share it back up. Where do you think that might come in, that bias?
Would that be number 11, possibly, working with stakeholders and influencing strategy, or is that more about your user people?
That's more about kind of advocating for service design in itself. So business case, getting people alongside. Wonder if it's equity.
Yeah, it could come under that, couldn't it? Yeah,
that feels like a really important thing. Claire said, not sure if you can hear me, but we have a point on equity. Yes, equity. Sam, it's the perfect idea. Sorry, there's just saying the marketing. Sam, could you talk about the marketing, or was it James?
Hi, Amy, it's James.
Hello.
Hiya. I've just been studying marketing on my OU, and I guess it links in a bit with what Delia was saying around the user adoption. There's a theory behind it that I hadn't really considered before, that links kind of marketing with, you know, how you can test and take out a product to a user, for them to test. And it's kind of, there was more, I guess there was more to it than what I thought marketing actually was.
Oh, could we maybe link in after this to see if there's something that we could that might need to be in this?
Yeah,
and it might be so. There's loads of other apprenticeships that have been or are in the process of being created. There's digital UX apprenticeship. There's improvement specialists. There's, you know, it may be that that Delia's role. I mean, Delia, am I right in saying that it's kind of moving? Is it more about the user experience and testing it? And is that what your role entails?
Yeah, I'm from the user adoption team. So at the moment, the main part of our job is really getting all of Dorset Council to adopt Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365. But obviously we're working with the service design team with anything that they do as well, anything that they design or improve, that we need to give people sort of like training and the know-how with that as well. So that's sort of how the two link together.
Yeah. It's likely that there would be another apprenticeship which would cover that. I mean, something that has been a challenge is kind of where does the remit end and how does it fit within other different courses available? And so there's definitely a user research. It may be that there's definitely a digital user researcher who does, but it sounds like what you're doing is a mixture of training and development and also supporting and some change management and organizational development type stuff.
Have we got measuring the success in there, the benefits management? Did I miss that bit?
I think that comes in with the influencing strategy, so it's partly with the data of being able to measure what has been the successes. I see Helen's facilitation and providing self-learning and then identifying trends. Yeah, there is that kind of future look, isn't there? So this is like evolving and shaping, and so we're really glad to have Dorset as part of the Trailblazer group, and would love to have you involved and have anybody else who wants to be involved with the Trailblazer group, whether that is just receiving documentation and commenting on it, whether that's coming to workshops and helping to shape it, or getting the word out, and just having other employers' names on our employer Trailblazer group shows that there is a pressing need for this qualification. So yeah, if you have any other comments on it, then please do get in touch with me. I'm on my Twitter handle right at the front that I'll go back to, so please get in touch at Amy Newnham. Please do link in. Otherwise, I'm sure you can get my email off the grapevine and then comment. But I hope this was a helpful workshop, and thank you so much for having invited me and Clara to join you and be part of Futurefest.
Thank you very much for thank you very much for joining us. And if people want to watch this back, or they want to encourage their colleagues to watch it so that they can get in touch with you and look through really the job description that you've kindly put together, and it looks really, really good, then they can watch this back on the digital Dorset channel on the YouTube channel and get involved. And there's still more sessions to go today and tomorrow from other authorities and organisations. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really useful.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, definitely echo that. Thanks, Delia. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.